City of Isani City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 16th. Seating may be limited. If you would like to send in a comment for public comment or public hearing to be read on your behalf, please submit it to the city clerk at jstrand@cityofisani.us or call her at 763-762-5759. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could all rise for Pledge Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doing roll call, all council members are present. Any public comment? No public comment. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt the agenda by Councilman Burgley and second by Councilman Collison. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Approving City Council minutes for March 2nd, which was a regular meeting of City Council, and November 24th, a Parks, Recreation, and Culture Board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Collison and second by Councilman Burgley. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Announcements. Park, Recreation, and Culture Board meeting will be Tuesday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. City offices are closed Friday, April 2nd in observation of Good Friday. A City Council meeting will be Tuesday, April 6th at 7 p.m. with an EDA meeting immediately following that council meeting. Any council committee reports? None at this time. We'll move on to the business items then. Moving on to K1, the MS4 2020 annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of being part of the MS4 program, we do have to do an annual report. So this will be your annual report. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Stormwater Sewer System. We had adopted this in 2019. This permit gives authorization to discharge stormwater. We also have implemented regulatory mechanisms, educational outreach, and environmental protection. Oops. Okay. This isn't going to the next slide. There we go. We do have several partnerships in this, Bolton and Mink, the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Services, Clean Water Act, Minnesota Pollution Control, State of Minnesota. Again, this is part of our annual report. We do have to do this portion. It's considered kind of our education outreach, and we do have to present to the council every year as part of this permit. We do have a report that is due on June 30th of this year. Also, we do have to apply for a new permit this year, and that's due on April 1st. We do have to record all of our illicit discharges, and in 2020 we only had 5, so that's great news. That means all of our builders are doing what they're supposed to do on their development sites. I don't know why this keeps doing this.
So 5 is a good number? What's
Yeah,
the,
that's
what's the
low.
average number? What's the
Well,
average
I don't
number?
know an average. We've only been doing it for 2 years,
Okay.
so but that is low. That's, if you think of all the houses that were being built, those
Sure.
are all the people that have allowed runoff to go off of their sites, including the sands into the street. They don't have the silt fence up. So that's all that we recorded.
Only
So-
100 a year. I mean, we're building on average 100
Yeah,
a year and only
so-
5.
Yeah.
That's pretty
So
good.
it's,
Yeah, I would
it's
think
really, it's really good.
I was just curious how many we average.
I can tell you this week, we have more than that right now in violation because of the quick thaw and the quick freeze. So we're working on that up in Legacy Pines. We're doing our public outreach, public participation. One of the things we just talked about is the construction runoff, and then also the post-construction. When they're done, we have to make sure that everything out there is in good standing, good housekeeping. What we do for our public outreach is this here. We also put an article in each of our, in the Isantian each season. We put one in. We do have our rain garden is also part of this. We do also have information on our website. Again, the part of it is allowing or having our residents actually report if they're seeing anything happen. Also staff, public works, general staff. We do have, Ryan goes on an inspection weekly, and then during open construction on developments, the city engineer, we have through Bolton and Mink, they go out there weekly as well, check on this, and then obviously the development information. These are just some of the procedures. We have a checklist that we go through. We do have a manual that we use. This was just a map kind of demonstrating where the development is. That hasn't really changed. And then we make sure that all of our enforcement happens. There are penalties that we did adopt in 2019, part of our enforcement and response procedure. We are now actively doing that. So what we do is we notify them, and they have 24 hours to come into compliance, and we can fine them if we choose to do so. Again, just kind of talking again about what some of our good housekeeping is. It's just part of our permit, things that we need to do in order to maintain our MS4 status. Some of our future work that we're looking at doing is we're going to continue to implement our SWIP. We're going to look at some different grants, assessments that we can do through that. And then we just kind of listed our partnerships. Bolton and Mink is our big partner in this. And then we listed our developments that are going on that we will go out and enforce. And we do have a partnership with those builders per se, because they know the rules and they know they have to comply, and that keeps all of our water clean and safe. Have any questions? So you'll be seeing this again next year. It's pretty much the same presentation every year as part of our permit requirements.
Well, good job, Ms. Selman.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. One thing I would like to add, and I don't know if she did say this, but I will add in that this is not a voluntary program that we are a part of. It's mandated by the MPCA. We are required to have this, so we can't choose to not do it and not enforce if we wanted to. It's not it is one of those mandated programs that we're in. So it sounds kind of, when you call it a program, it sounds voluntary. However, this is not voluntary. Thank you.
All righty then. We'll go on to K2. Resolution approving the site plan for a liquor store located at 10 6th Avenue Southeast.
Is that a good address?
Did you call the county?
Yes, that is a good address.
Okay.
Yes, I have confirmed. So this is our liquor store presentation. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at their last meeting. We went through this presentation there. There was no public comment from anyone there regarding the liquor store. This is Zone B2, general business. We're looking at a 12,710 square foot building. We haven't changed anything from the site plan since our Planning Commission meeting. Jason did talk with Public Works Director about the curb cuts in the driveway, or whatever you want to call those.
The little islands there.
The little islands, and he said it's fine, leave them there. So that was addressed there. All of our setbacks are met. We will have drive up with this on the south side of the building. There's 6 stalls located there. We also have 6 RV boat trailer parking on the, or we'll have parking on the south side and the east side, and it'll be a total of 12 for that. The mechanical equipment is on the east side of the building. It'll be screened by the fence and by the building. The trash enclosure on the north side does meet our minimum requirements there. This is the elevations. We did review this at Planning Commission. Planning Commission recommends approval as seen. We have the LP siding, the stucco panel, architectural block, brick rock face, CMU, composite deck, board, standing seam metal roof is what we're proposing at this time. Again, that will depend on our bids that come through, but that is what's being proposed. And then the 2 different materials per code are being met with this requirement. And it's a maroon kind of color. It kind of looks like a brown on here, but it's more of a maroon. This is our landscape plan. We are meeting the minimum requirements of, we need 1 tree per 50 feet of frontage. We're proposing 2. We have a mixture of trees and perennials and ornamental grass. The ornamental grass will be on the east side of the lot. We are not seeding that or landscaping, or irrigating that area. That'll be left in its natural state. And then we are putting in the black-eyed Susan, which is the Isanti flower. The foot candles is 1.7 average foot candles. It's 0 at the property line. That is required for our lighting plans. This is basically interior design, just so you can see. I know that some of the council members haven't seen it, so that's why I put it in your packet, so that you could see what the interior looks like. Right now, we're just voting on the site plan, not the interior, but I just wanted it for you to see it. We've had, the public hearing was on March 2nd. We are tonight before the city council for site plan review, and then the bids will go out, and we will be opening them on April 9th for the bids for construction.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
For the outside of the building, basically it would be on where the vehicles park would be on the west side and the south side?
Yes. Yep, the west side will
Where
have
they're
the
parked
regular
up
stalls.
to the building there?
No, there is a little bit of a landscape sidewalk area.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
don't have to worry
can't
about someone
Point to show you, but that kind of
possibly hitting one of the,
yeah, no,
parts
there's,
with-
yeah,
okay.
there's a little bit of
I think
barrier.
I think we learned our lesson on
Yeah.
that.
All right. I just couldn't see,
Yeah.
but that's all. Looks good.
And there's quite a deep sidewalk there also.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments, or concerns by the council?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Lundin and a second by Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Selman. Moving to K3, the street light infill plan, if I can get that out. You want to just do all these except for, never mind. Resolution approving for a 10-year street lighting infill plan. There's an A and a B to this one. I'm just going to read B as well, Mr. Sylvester. That is a resolution approving of street lighting infill for 2021. Mr. Sylvester?
Thank you, Mayor Johnson, member of City Council. So at that last COA meeting, you had asked that I reach out to Isani County to see if they were willing to share in any of those costs for the lighting along Heritage. They're not willing to share in any of those costs. Their reason was that's primary to light the city sidewalk, and they would provide the easement. So I guess I'm just looking forward to see if you want to actually move forward with the street lighting infill as provided. So that resolution would be the resolution to do the street lighting, and the other one would be to do it as this year's street lighting.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Lundin and a second by Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. K4, resolution authorizing repair and maintenance work on Well House 2.
Okay, so thank you. This one is, so you know that EH Renner was awarded the job of repairing the Well House 2 pump, and in that process, they pulled the pump and they cleaned the casing and televised the casing. And what they found out was that sand has filled that open hole at the bottom of that well. So originally when they drilled that well was drilled to 380 feet deep, and it had 846 cubic yards of sand pulled out of it. What has happened is that open hole has went from 107 feet to 37 feet. And we know that when they pulled the pump out and took the pump apart, we know that pump right now has pumped sand at some point in time. I know that when it got put in 91, it was rebuilt in 96 because it had pumped sand at that time, so it was rebuilt 5 years later. We haven't had any real issues with the pump, but in this process, we're finding out now that when he took it apart now that it does see some sand wear in there. So I'm looking to have that sand removed. We're thinking right now that we're pumping sand when we're doing like water main flushing, so that well would run for an extended period of time, not a normal well cycle, or on a hot day during the summer when we've had to start all 3 wells, they've had to run just to keep up with demand. So we think that that's when it's pumping sand now. It's not a lot that I'm seeing the sand anywhere, but it's really hard to see the sand because it goes right from the well, right to the filter. I wouldn't see it unless I maybe popped the cap and seen an excessive amount of sand in there, but I'm not seeing that. But in the pump where I know that I have pumped sand. So there is money in the capital outlay plan to make this repair. The well repair itself was $35,580. To remove the sand, it'd be $56,735. We are installing a VFD and a drawdown sensor right now for that well. Part of this process is we have to put a door on the west side of that building just for that sand removal process. And if we didn't install that door, it would cost us more money because we have to pull it out the roof. So it makes sense to put the door in. It's safer for the guys that are pulling the sand out. to pull the sand out. If there was a doorway there, that can just, it's easier access instead of being on the roof and trying to guide stuff around. So, looking to move forward with pulling the sand out.
Boy,
Well-
that price tag stings, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, well,
Well,
sand eats up.
That's what I
pipe.
mean. What are you gonna do? I mean,
You're
you gotta-
pumping the sand, it's gonna eat the pipe up, it's gonna eat the casing up, it's gonna be issues. I don't, yeah, it
Fix it
stings,
now
but,
or fix it many times down the road.
yep, I make a motion to approve.
You said it is in the capital improvement plan budget.
Yeah, there is enough money in there to make the repairs, yes.
Okay. But was it budgeted for this year, or?
Yeah,
Yep.
the budget amount is almost identical to the actual cost, and that was represented in our last rate study.
Perfect. I'll second it then.
Motion to approve by Councilman Lundin and a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to K5, Main Street Construction Preliminary Engineering Report.
You got 10 minutes this time, Jason.
You got your drive in there. Are you ready to go? You got your laser pointer.
Two drives I see. Mine's you're gonna have to excuse yourself.
Yeah, right? Do I have to excuse myself? I live on Main Street.
No.
I'm kidding.
Okay, so as we discussed back in February, we performed a preliminary engineering evaluation of Main Street. We completed a survey, we evaluated the most cost-effective options, and are bringing this report to proceed with the process of this evaluation. So the overall idea here is the Main Street from Whiskey Road to 4th Avenue has been identified for quite some years as becoming a little beyond the repair state. So that was mainly the limits of our project. If you also see the little leg to the south along Whiskey, that was more or less the side evaluation of a drainage issue right at the intersection of Main and Whiskey that we also did. So we'll discuss that shortly. So the existing conditions, that segment of street is a state aid route, so it is eligible for state aid funds. It was rated at a 4 out of 10 in the last 2020 rating evaluation, which is below a recovery type level of condition. So it was time to evaluate what type of reconstruction was going to be needed. The water main was installed in 2 or 3 different phased installations. The first block and a half on the east end was done in the original install of the city's master system in 1975-76, believed to be cast iron. And then the rest of the water main was installed in 92 and is ductile iron pipe. Still have had really no issues on breaks or failures on that. And then the sanitary sewer went in on its own entirely separate project in 94, located actually behind the walk on the north side of the street. And the storm sewer, which was where that drainage problem was on the west end, went in actually in 2006. So quite a few different pieces of projects that cobbled this together. So the proposed improvements were identified to be running a reclaim machine to blend up the subgrade or the class 5 with the pavement, replace all the curb and gutter because there's too many intermediate failed curb to patch that back, and then replace the sidewalk along the back of curb in those areas. We did look at the idea of narrowing the street. It turned out to be 2.5 feet narrower would be still meeting state aid requirements for parking on both sides to take it down to a 34-foot face-to-face wide street, and then trying to add a grass boulevard on the north side and narrow the walk down to 5 feet, thinking that would be a cost-effective solution to reducing city cost. But it actually turned out If I go to the next slide here, well, I guess I'm not zoomed in enough, but the westernmost block of the project on the north side had new sidewalk and curb go in on that 2006 street project. So to leave that in place was more cost effective than to mess with street widths and reconstruct all of that, especially when it's so new. Also, because the current layout has catch basins on the north curb line, if we tried to narrow it, we would also have to rip out catch basins that are in perfectly fine shape, move them 5 feet or 3 feet, and reconstruct them. So once all those costs added up, it actually turned out to be slightly less cost effective to try and narrow a street. So, so that's why the proposed condition here is to more or less put it back exactly how it was on width of sidewalk, width of pavement, and then the only real change is the current curb style is, it's a drive over type curb, but it's kind of a V shape. It's a little harder on vehicles to go over without kind of bottoming out or really feeling those without a cut at the driveways. The proposed curb is more of a rollover surmountable type that's called an Edina style, but it's got a much more rolled over curve to it, so vehicles don't really hit and bottom as they go over it, and otherwise more or less the rest of the project would stay kind of in the same setup as it currently does. So I guess I covered the new walk there. Utilities, like I had mentioned, the water main has no current failure issues and no expectation to fail before the next round of pavement rehab would be needed in 30+ years, so we're not recommending really doing anything to the water main, as well as the sewer having been installed in '94 and the current PVC even standard, that should have plenty of life left. The only other utility thing would be we're still evaluating, or we would if we continue on to the detailed design, where if we need to stub another set of catch basins on this street to make sure we don't have water spreading too wide on the street. You need a certain number of catch basins to make sure the water doesn't spread out into the drive lanes, specifically on state aid roads. And so we'll get into that evaluation, but we did include one set of catch basins getting added to the project to ensure that we're meeting those kind of requirements. So as I said, here's the general layout. I guess the last piece to share is the far east end from 5th to 4th is a different typical section that actually does have a grass boulevard already. The street's the same width though, and that walk was found to be in acceptable condition to keep in place as well to save some more reconstruction costs that aren't necessary. So that would stay in place, but it would still end up with a grass boulevard on that block staying essentially where it was.
Same curb?
We'd switch to that surmountable type curb on that block as well. So switching gears, the other evaluation that we did was the drainage issue along Whiskey, and what we found was the existing catch basins that are, you see my cursor? No. That are on Main Street. They're about 150 feet up Main Street. Those went in 2006 with the culvert pipe that crosses Main Street. That's on the right side of the image there. And essentially all that went in, and the outlet is supposed to be to the south. That's to the left of that intersection. But the apron is actually 1.5 feet below the bottom of the ditch. So ever since it went in, it's never really been able to drain. There was a 6-inch just plastic corrugated pipe that had gone in with a couple inlets to try and help the situation back then apparently, and that has never worked at all. And so Public Works have had to go there annually, at least multiple times during deep freeze times and in the spring here, to make sure that ice up isn't causing major problems all the way backing up onto Main Street even, as well as the sidewalk sitting along it. And so the remedy is found to be installing a 24-inch pipe, more or less. If you see the two aprons, the two triangles pointing each other right on the right next to the intersection, essentially the existing apron would stay exactly as it is. but we'd add a new one right next to it that would take in the water, and then it would just pipe it to the next intersection down where there's enough grade to get that water to make it all the way. We don't have to worry about trying to fit reconstructing the walk or the cost of it. And actually adding these inlet options would help just take even more water off those sidewalks. So it really has multiple benefits. I guess the walk being sitting kind of as low as it is with some retaining walls and railings, you know, we wanted to look at whether we could fix that, but it turns out the right-of-way is right on the edge of the sidewalk, and so to try and raise that, we would have needed to grade out into the private property significantly. And so with this option, we don't have to even touch the walk, so, you know, cost-effective wise, this was the recommended option. It does turn out to have an estimated price tag of $59,000 to be completed. We do have a stormwater utility fund that's, you know, it would directly apply to. If you recall, we did have our stormwater maintenance program last year here that we're doing the design for. We did remove all the culverts that we had originally called out to do maintenance on along that entire run of Whiskey here. And so while this wasn't originally identified as a piece of that project, it would be recommended to just add this storm pipe to that storm pond maintenance project if you guys wanted to move forward with it. This is a completely separate beast than the rest of this report and the assessments and things. This doesn't apply to those. This is just another evaluation that we've done. So just so you kind of have that background.
I can say this, because I live on Main, and as much as I like everybody in Public Works, I see quite a bit of them guys when everything thaws out and we have hard rains, because they're dealing with that right on Whiskey and Main. And you got that big old noisy truck out there, and just to think the money we could save in that alone. I don't know that it'd be 59,000, but
Well, vac on trucks aren't cheap.
that's true.
That's just added wear and tear that it won't have to do.
Not
Deal
to
with it
mention,
anymore.
what do you put out there, Matt? 2 to 4 guys at times? I mean, it gets bad there.
Yeah, usually we'd have 3 people out there. You know, what happens is, like Jason said, that it holds water. So when the water is coming down Main Street to those 2 catch basins at the end, they're already froze underneath the road. They're froze out to the manhole for that catch basin. It just holds water and freezes. So when we go out there, it's not a matter of sucking the water out. We got to jet that line across the road. We got to jet that directly to the manhole for the storm sewer in the middle of Main Street, and then likely jet it back out the other direction again. So it's a process to do it.
And essentially
And it's-
fixing it the way you want to do it, it's eliminating that.
For the life of, I mean, 60-plus years, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the life of the pipe.
We could come from the stormwater utility fund anyway.
Yeah.
Paying
Yeah.
for that is, I mean, obviously, that's not budgeted for this year, right? Or it's,
No, we had, what was it, $110,000 that we allocated to wrap up our stormwater projects this year? So yeah, this
we
was.
we do have,
Yep.
so I mean, they're
Yep.
not set aside for certain other projects. I mean, we can make this that, a
Yeah,
project
and,
we do
and
with
the,
that
and
money.
the goal along here is to have 2021 be our final year of the
Okay.
larger projects, and then transition to a much smaller annual amount from maintenance of, $10,000 inflation adjusted. So yeah, my recommendation is go forward with this, get this
Okay.
stuff done.
The
Have
excep-
it be the last year.
Excuse me, the exception would be that we did not do the ditches on Whiskey because of we wouldn't fix ours when the county still has their ditch filling up and such, so. just
There
wanted to
isn't,
make
we don't
note
So
of
have
that.
something else would
problems
get
with
pushed
those
back,
according to
but
county.
We don't know when that will ever
Right,
be
but-
addressed. We'll address it
Okay.
sometime in the future.
we won't have the cash for that if we do this year anyway, right? So,
I'd say that's gonna be a number of years out, though.
yeah, right.
And we gotta deal with county before we can do anything.
I just want to, I think we should get it done. I just want to make sure we can pay for it, so.
So are you waiting for approval for all this?
That'll, at the end of this study, the presentation, there's a few different resolutions that we'll need, but just one last piece on this. I did talk with the county engineering department on the same topic, whether there's a cost-sharing interest. There was a no. This isn't negatively impacting their street. It's, strictly impacting our street and our sidewalk, so.
Boy, that county.
And then that topic, in the future, when that ditch, work may or may not happen with the county, this actually has almost a straight side slope from the road to the sidewalk. And so it's not a situation where they'll be able to come in and just excavate down the ditch and open that up and get grade. It's the embankment slope of that road is already there, and they really won't be able to, modify the ditch. Otherwise, that would have been our proposed solution, because obviously just regrading would be cheaper than a pipe. So, so this is really the long-term, fix to the situation. So, all right, so that's kind of a side element of this whole report, because the main purpose is Main Street, and what we're getting into is the costs and assessments. So, with that said, back to Main Street, the cost estimate for the total project is at $674,000. The original budgeted amount, I believe, was 663-ish, so it's slightly over, but when we get into the next pieces, the state aid element is this entire project is state aid eligible, because we're not doing private or city sewer or water, which are the non-state aid type elements. So if you recall, back in February, we already did the advance request to let the state know that we may want to use those funds. It was a highly restricted advance attempt to get money, and so the fact that we had qualified to get it was one of the reasons we were moving forward here. And so basically all those dollars are going to end up being accessible, or not accessible, fundable through the state aid program. That's the advance that we requested. It was slightly less than this total project cost that we have determined at this point, again, without actual bids and whatever. But the way state aid works is we can get as much as we're eligible to get right now, and we can request the remainder, if there is a remainder, next year, or the following year when the funds are available. So it never technically has to come out of the general fund as a permanent thing. It'd just be whether or not there's something that has to get worked out to float the money until the state aid funds are become available again for us to draw off of. And then along with that, this would be an accessible type project, following the same procedure we just did on 6th Avenue. The policy is that 25% of the street improvements would be accessible. That does include replacing the pavement, the curb, and the sidewalk in this case, because it's a replacement. If you recall, on 6th Avenue, we didn't assess the sidewalk because it was new and not petitioned for, whereas this one's a replacement. And so all of those costs, the average assessment number is estimated at this $5,661. A piece to add to this is we did restrict how much of the total pavement is being assessed, in that the policy says it would be any sizing over the city standard size road wouldn't be assessed. And so in this case, the 34-foot street width would be the city standard for parking on both sides in the two lanes. And so that kind of 2.5 feet of street width isn't accessible, or wasn't factored into the total cost that is accessible to be, reduced at this 25%.
So it's going to be a little less than that?
No, that's
Or
already
that is-
factored in.
you
I was
did
just
factor-
sharing
okay,
that it wasn't
got it.
just total project cost at
Okay.
25%. It's
So
there's a
that is
strip.
the final number, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, as we discussed before,
Actually, it could come down depending on what the bids come in at.
correct, absolutely, yep. And with the final design, even actually comes out to, these are still just estimates on, general quantities on things, because we haven't done the final design. So even just the actual estimate of the final quantities in the plan set is, may come down. But that's just to start the conversation, I guess. So moving on to the schedule, As we talked before, there's interest in holding an open house. It's not part of the assessment process that's required, but it's certainly a good idea to get everybody informed and get insight. So, you know, we propose to hold one on March 25th to get some public input. And then the next real step in the assessment procedure would be to conduct the public hearing on what we're slating out as the April 20th. At that time, if the city would want to move forward, we would also plan to have the plans and specs ready to be able to be advertised and be approved. And so the council could make the motion to move forward after the public hearing with going out for bids. We get bids in May and still be able to construct the project in the summer. It's only probably a 2-month-long project. It'd just be able to have that leeway to start, you know, sometime between June and August and still get done by the end of the construction season. And then at the end of all of that, once we have the actual numbers from what got spent, we would hold that final assessment hearing to lock in the assessment amounts that would end up being levied onto the tax records. So, any questions?
Are we concerned at all about the parade?
We'll certainly, as we actually do on almost every project that we've been doing on streets specifically, we write in, there's no active work to be done during, you know, Jubilee days dates. In this case, we might write in, you know, a little bit more in depth on, it has to be completely open and usable, you know, beforehand, as opposed to just pulling traffic control or something, because there might be, you know, totally torn up street, but they, you know, we'd want it to be completely usable. But other than that,
It would be dirt, but they could still use it.
well, it'd be a nice reclaim material, which actually isn't too bad.
Maybe they march through your yard or something, but, okay, well.
You don't have to sweep, you won't have to sweep it.
Yeah, at this point in time, I don't even know if they're having a parade, but I'm just curious about it, if they're getting for that. So this runs from, well, I know it goes all the way to, obviously, Whiskey. How far east does it go?
4th Street.
4th Street, is it?
Right, so Whiskey to 5th, it gets you past the park, Madison Park, and then that next block, and you know, just for having the scale fit, you know, we cut it so it drops to that little viewport on the bottom there, and that's that last block, so from 5th to 4th.
Just to talk about what we talked about in Cal, on these bids, does it cost to get a bid? I mean, will they charge us to bid on Eagle Park, or is that
No, so yeah, so from what we were talking about, if this goes as a full plan set, where we do want to move forward, and we add on those alternates of like just this extra plan sheet that would go with the Eagle Park or the Heritage Walk or whatever, and they could just be their own little extras, and then the bid would just have extra line item that's alternate A, you know, these items that have to do with this park, and then we'd just have those different totals, and then that's when we'd be able to bring those bid results to you guys and be like, well, okay, here's the main price, you guys want to award that, here's this extra price for the Eagle Park, do you want to move forward with that? No? Okay, well then it's not, you know, then it's just like that out of the construction package, and that's no extra cost to have that evaluated or considered.
Thanks.
So, are you you looking for, actually a motion on all three to move forward? Is that what you're looking for, Jason?
Correct, yeah. So the first one is the formal, you know, assessment procedure motion to receive the feasibility report and call for the public hearing. As we said, we would plan on it for April 20th at 7 p.m. You know, we would handle getting the notices out and the ads in the paper and things. So that's that first step. If you proceed with that step, to keep that timeline working, the next resolution is to authorize preparing the plans so that, like I'd shown in that schedule, the plans would be ready to be able to go to bid still in the spring here. If we waited until after the assessment hearing to call for the plans to be made, you know, then we wouldn't be bidding till June. We may run out of construction season or get, you know, significantly worse bids or, you know, all those delays. So we'd recommend also approving the plans to be developed at this point. And then the third one is that
That's
separate
storm
project,
drain.
the storm sewer, to get that pipe you know, actually designed and added to the plan set. And this would also include the inspection services and construction services for the install of it.
Well, I make a motion to accept A, B, and C with the open house as mentioned.
You said the state aid, we applied for that in February, but I mean, you don't, that was already approved, or you haven't heard back on that yet, but you don't see any issues probably coming up, or?
Nope, so actually, we put in for it in November, asking for an advance. So the current system is you're allowed to advance up to 5 years of your amount you get allotted each year in construction. So we currently are about, I think, 2 years actually advanced from even having a zero balance, but so we had to request to be allowed to advance those other 3 years of funds to be able to get that money, as opposed to waiting until we have a positive balance and spend it down. There's no interest or anything on that, so we regularly do keep ourselves constantly advanced, because kind of a why not. But last year, the system had been drawn down so heavily, and then with the COVID, with less vehicles driving, there was risk of less money available. They kind of shut down advances. And so that got us pretty concerned that this project wasn't going to be happening. If you recall, we kind of talked about that in January. Well, we put in for just, hey, we need this $636,000 for this project to be able to go through, or we're not going to be able to do it. So we put in for it, and it turns out in January here, they reassessed all their numbers, see how things are going now, and they found, actually we can do some advances. So what we're going to do is approve the people that asked so far. And we were one of like 10 cities only that had the foresight to ask for it in advance. And so we were just automatically approved. And so, that money is already earmarked for us to use. We're not worried that it's not going to be available to be advanced.
Then the remaining balance, you said we'll be able to take that on next year.
If there is a remaining
Yeah,
balance,
right.
once we get to that point.
Right.
Then next year, we would have to request another advance for whatever that amount left is.
Right.
And we may or may not,
Okay.
have that awarded or approved at that time, but it would be eligible, and eventually we will, be able to get it.
Just depends on how long, sure. Okay. Well, I'll second Steve's motion there then.
I have a motion to accept A, B, and C. What was the other thing you said?
With the open house, that is not
With-
necessary.
With the open house. And I have a second from Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Jason.
We ready to motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda by Councilman Burgley,
Second?
second by Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Lundin and a second by Councilman Burgley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Therefore, we stand adjourned.